1914 marked the beginning of World War I, one of the deadliest and most horrific military conflicts in the history of humankind. It started with a seemingly insignificant and small-scale event that took place at the border of Serbia and Austro-Hungary. Is it true that the assassination of Franz Ferdinand led to the outbreak of war? What were the causes of World War I? What were the goals of each side? And could the war have been avoided? If you like our history videos, subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. At the beginning of the 20th century, the world was on the brink of a big war. The new empires, such as Germany, wanted to establish a new world order, while the old empires sought to maintain their power and influence. For example, Russia had a long-standing desire to control the Black Sea, and Italy was longing to bring back the glory of the Roman Empire. So why then didn't the war start earlier? In fact, that could have happened. Germany had previously tried to provoke France on multiple occasions, which could easily have led to a big war. Germany caused two Moroccan crises in 1905 and in 1911. Also, Germany was in dispute with France over two strategically important ports in North Africa. At the time, there was little doubt that German troops were about to invade France. The catastrophe was prevented due to an immense diplomatic effort. However, peace did not last long. On June 28, 1914, a Bosnian Serb, Gavrilo Princip, assassinated the heir to the throne of Austria, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, in Sarajevo. The Karađorđević were the ruling dynasty of Serbia at the time. Their nationalist politics aimed to increase Serbia's power and restore its former glory. Franz Ferdinand was an advocate of federalism and wanted the nations living in the empire to have more rights and autonomy. The Serbs, however, saw this as a threat to their influence in the Balkans. According to one theory, the Serbian government orchestrated the killing. The chief of Serbian intelligence, Dragutin Dimitrijević, helped to found a terrorist organization known as the Black Hand, which had connections to Gavrilo Princip and Young Bosnia. However, many other historians believe that Serbia wanted to avoid war at all costs, so sending terrorists to kill the Archduke would have been counterproductive for the Serbs. The death of the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary led to a deep diplomatic crisis. The countries had been trying to find a diplomatic solution for over a month, but it soon became clear that war was unavoidable. This century changed the course of history. Their results shaped the world we live in today. The Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Berlin Wall are all pieces of an historical puzzle. Want to know how people fought for their freedom during the Nazi occupation? What drove many political leaders to collaborate with Hitler during World War II? If you want to wrap your head around World War II beyond general knowledge, check out our course, World War II, Resistance Operations. We gathered all the essential facts and stories for you in one place. Follow the link in the description. In 1914, Europe was covered with a net of political alliances. Germany was an ally of Austria-Hungary, and so was Italy. This military bloc was known as the Triple Alliance. It later became the Quadruple Alliance, or the Central Powers, after the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Bulgaria joined the war. Russia, France, and Great Britain formed the Triple Entente. In addition, Russia was informally allied with Serbia and aimed to protect its independence. Austria-Hungary didn't want to go to war with Serbia, considering it had a strong ally, Russia, although Austria-Hungary also had the support of a major power, Germany. The German Emperor Wilhelm II ensured that in case of any trouble, Germany was ready to provide full military support to Austria, and that had practically given the Austrians carte blanche to start a war. On July 23rd, Austria issued a harsh ultimatum to Serbia. It consisted of 10 demands, which included the demand to remove all offensive publications concerning Austria-Hungary from the newspapers and arrest those responsible for the Sarajevo assassination. Serbia agreed to comply with all of the conditions except one, accepting an Austro-Hungarian inquiry into the assassination. The government saw this demand as a threat to the sovereignty of Serbia. Besides, the request was vague. It wasn't clear what exactly the investigators would be doing, and this request could have meant total occupation of the country. Serbia rejected the ultimatum, relying on Russia's support. In turn, Germany pressured Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia, then promised them military assistance. So they did on July 28. On July 31st, Russia launched mobilization in accordance with its alliance commitments. But in fact, Nicholas II of Russia wanted to avoid this. He knew what the conflict might lead to and wasn't willing to take responsibility for millions of lives. Nevertheless, he took the advice of his counselors and signed the General Mobilization Order. Germany claimed that this action posed a security threat and demanded a stop to mobilization. Germany declared war on Russia on August 1st and on France on the 3rd. Squeezed between Russia and France, Germany knew it couldn't fight a long war on two fronts. That's why they devised the Schlieffen Plan, which took advantage of how long it would supposedly take to mobilize the Russian army. While Russia would be gathering troops from all over the country, German soldiers were to quickly and decisively defeat France, withdrawing it from the war. Then, left without allies, Russia would become an easy target, weak enough to defeat in no time. That was a great plan. It was a Swiss watch, but Russia managed to mobilize troops much faster than Germany expected. That complicated things for the Germans and saved France from defeat. The German army attacked from the Western Front through neutral Belgium. The goal was to defeat the French army there and take over Paris. But to do that, the Germans needed more soldiers. Moreover, several divisions were sent to the Eastern Front as the Russians had made successful advances in Western Prussia. So, more soldiers were needed for the First Battle of the Marne. France stood undefeated during the 1914 campaign. The front line that had formed by the end of that year almost didn't change at all until the end of the war. The stagnation meant the infamous positional warfare, the cold and wet trenches, the constant shelling, and the suicidal attacks on enemy machine guns. That was the reality of the First World War, described in the novels of Remarque, Hemingway, and many other writers. Things were rather different on the Eastern Front. After successfully launching the East Prussia operation, the Russian army was defeated at the Battle of Tannenberg due to strategic miscalculations. The defeat was followed by a series of failures that led to the Great Retreat of 1915. The Russian army had to withdraw troops from large territories. As a result, it lost Galicia, Poland, and Lithuania. The soldiers had to leave tons of weapons behind, and many died or were captured. Nevertheless, Russia hadn't been defeated completely. The front line stabilized, and the war continued. When soldiers realized they wouldn't be at home for Christmas, they fell into despair. At some point, they even decided to take a break from fighting. The Christmas truce occurred along the Western Front. The soldiers fraternized, refused to fight, and even played football. But that didn't last long. 1915 was also marked by Italy joining the war. No one expected the Italians to join the Triple Entente. They began the invasion of Austria-Hungary. The battles on the Italian front turned out to be among the most brutal and pointless battles of the First World War. World War I was the first war that relied on people. Everybody had to work very hard to make a contribution to victory. Long working hours, food shortages, and lack of heating became the daily reality for millions of people. Almost nothing had changed on the Western Front in 1916. Both sides continued to launch suicidal attacks to capture 1 or 2 miles of devastated land. The horrible fighting reached its climax during the Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme. The total losses for both sides almost topped 1 million, and neither side had become closer to victory. The Battle of the Somme became a metaphor for futile and indiscriminate slaughter. 1916 was also marked by the Brusilov Offensive, also known as the June Advance. Russian troops launched an attack on the Eastern Front and made an almost 60-mile advance, a remarkable distance for World War I. The only thing that saved Austria-Hungary from losing the war was the timely arrival of German divisions. However, the strategic triumph of the operation did not bring any significant results, said General Brusilov himself. The course of the war changed in 1917. First, there was the Russian Revolution. The people were tired of a pointless war that seemed endless. This contributed to a growing resentment for the Tsar and led to his abdication. The provisional government that took control of the country ensured the Entente that Russia would continue to fight until the end. The provisional government shot themselves in the foot with this decision. The US also joined the Triple Entente, and it soon became clear that Germany was about to lose. The enemy's resources were far too great, and by 1917 the German people were starving because many of their cities were under siege. But the war went on. In October, the Bolsheviks seized control of Russia and declared their intention to sign a peace treaty under any conditions. This decision was very popular among the people of Russia. So, in March 1918, Soviet Russia and the Central Powers signed the peace treaty of Brest-Litovsk. However, when the US sent its expeditionary forces to Europe, it became obvious that Germany had lost. In 1918, there was a revolution in Germany. The emperor abdicated, and the Social Democrats came to power. The new government immediately signed a peace treaty with the Entente. Even though Germany was no longer being invaded by other countries at that point, the army was utterly exhausted and could no longer continue fighting. Finally, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, and the war ended. Germany was seen as the only guilty party. It was stripped of territories and obliged to disarm and pay the other countries large reparations. That gave rise to a myth about the brutality of Versailles. It's hard to tell whether this was a fair punishment for the country that had started a bloodbath in the center of Europe, which had destroyed and devastated entire cities, not to mention how many lives it took. When the French general Ferdinand Foch learned about the conditions of the Treaty of Versailles, he said, "This is not a peace. It is an armistice for 20 years. According to him, the punishment wasn't severe enough. Unfortunately, he was right. The fresh memories of World War I did not prevent the tragedies yet to come. What's your take on the events of World War I? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Knowledge of the past can help you understand the present. Now, you don't need to read long and tedious textbooks. Watch our courses instead. But why have one when you can have three? Check out our course bundles and put things into perspective. One 20-minute lecture a day can make you smarter in no time. 3 courses for winning historical disputes include 20 turning points of world history, the history of ancient Rome, and medieval Europe. Follow the link in the description and choose the option that works for you.